Welcome to Break Away from the Rat Race. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jay Helms. And Jay is the founder of W2 Capitalist. And he escaped the rat race. Sorry, he escaped the rat race. I was about to say break away from the rat race after 6 years of side hustling in real estate investing. And Jay has a goal to help 1 million people create multiple streams of income, achieve financial freedom, and build a legacy for their children. I mean, our goals are so perfectly aligned, Jay. It's just amazing. But Jay realized that closing on your first deal is probably the biggest hurdle and roadblock for new investors. So he wrote a book, and the book is called Make an Offer and Earn, Invest, and Repeat. And so his book, we're going to talk about it today, along with other interesting topics. But his book should help you get over those mental hurdles and get the first deal done. Jay, welcome to the show.
Eric, thank you for having me, sir. Really do appreciate it.
It was a little bit of a long intro, I know, but I want people to get to know you a little bit on a personal basis. And I know that you mentioned that you and Cassie, your wife, met on a reality TV show. I'm just curious to know. I don't know which reality TV, but yeah, maybe you can mention a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this goes back a while. So back in 2008, and the reality show was not it's not wildly known, but it was the name of it was The Catch Costa Rica. We spent 6 weeks in Costa Rica before we got voted off the island. Now, I didn't know her until I met her at the airport, and we were taking off to find out what this whole adventure was. But that was back in 2008, and it aired on the Outdoor Channel. And we got kicked off the island, and we came back, and we decided we couldn't live without one another. So she moved to Birmingham, where I was living at the time, and then later on we moved down to Florida. So about after 5 years, I better get these dates right, but after 5 years of living together, we got married, started having kids. And right now we're on a bit of another adventure. We started traveling. We converted our primary house, which kind of ties in my story of escaping the rat race. We converted our primary house into an Airbnb, and we've been traveling. So right now I'm sitting in the back of our RV. That's why this whole thing's blurred out, because it's a very small room. If you hear the kids screaming in the background, I apologize ahead of time. It is around their nap time, so we kind of strategically try to do these podcasts when that happens. But you never know with kids if they're going to go down. All right, but yeah, that's kind of how she and I met, and she is my partner in crime when it comes to real estate investing. She is the logical, sensible person on the side of the house. I'm the numbers guy. She's a design person, but it's a total team effort.
So. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think it's we could talk about that too, like the importance of being kind of aligned in terms of goals and stuff like that with your partner. It's just, there's so many people that you don't realize that, and then they go to meetups and they don't bring their partner, their wives and whatnot, and then they just they get all excited, they come home, and then their partners don't know what the hell they're talking
about. They don't know.
And say, I'm not doing this is crazy.
Yeah.
So it is very important for sure. So tell us about kind of like how you could maybe just a little bit off topic, but kind of how did you get you and Cassie aligned towards the same goal and focusing on real estate and all that? How did you manage that?
Yeah, we actually just love the idea. When we were early on in our relationship, we we're not very outgoing. We're both very introverted by personality types, and so one of the things, we love to cook. So we would be, home cooking meals, and of course HGTVs on the television, and we're watching these flipping shows and doing all the sexy stuff, or seeing all the sexy stuff that happens with the flipping stuff. But we never really, to this day, we still haven't technically what I consider flip a property. Now, we've done a couple of live-in flips where, and that was one of our biggest projects together, and we went through that. We remodeled a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that we lived in while the construction was going on, and we both did a lot of the construction. And I kind of knew once we had made it through that we were pretty solid, on our relationship status. But she and I are both very fortunate to have one another because we do align with that. Because there are people in my mastermind, and you hit the nail on the head. When I go, I very rarely go to the RIA meetings because we're traveling and introverted personality. I don't like being around big crowds, but I do talk to a lot of people who one or the other is, in the relationship is so excited about real estate investing and so passionate about it. And the flip side of that coin, their spouse is not. And they're asking me for advice on that. I'm like, man, I would love to give you some, but I didn't, I don't have the experience to rely on. I can tell you what I've told other people, and by all means, don't get a divorce over it. but you got to eventually, you got to figure out a way to make your spouse understand why this is so important and what it could do for your family, right? Just not now, but for generations to come. So yeah, I having your spouse on board is extremely important when you start, investing in real estate and to start thinking about the idea. And I think you hit the nail on the head. If you're going to real meetings, you should be bringing your spouse with you. Now you may have to have, hire a babysitter. You may not make every meeting together, whatnot, but it is definitely a team sport for sure.
Yeah, I agree. For me, like when to get my wife on board was kind of like I had to focus on two things. I had to focus on lifestyle. I think that was important, and kind of like change our way of doing things. That was kind of like, do you want to travel more? Do you want to do this? I said, yeah, I would like to do that. Well, if we do this, we'll be able to do that. And obviously, as if you have a family and you have children, then focusing on the legacy for your children, I think it's very important. So these are the kind of like, for me, the two kind of things that were, but it depends on your spouse as well. If they're very numbers oriented, then it might be a little bit easier. But but sometimes if there's a lot of emotions and stuff like that about doing things, risk averse and all that kind of stuff that you have to deal with. But
there's always emotions involved, right? There's always going to be emotions involved. I mean, you think about whatever the stat is, I think it's like 50% of marriages end in divorce. And of that 50%, the 50% that end in divorce, it's over money, it's over monetary issues. And while we talk about all the successes and you see all the glamorous stuff on TV, there's a real possibility that something could go wrong if you don't know what you're doing and you haven't really studied up and done your due diligence. And that could put a strain on a relationship. And especially if one part of the team is not on board, there's gonna be a lot of finger pointing that happens. And that, so I can't stress it enough. I don't, when Cassie and I started our relationship, I was probably about maybe 3 or 4 months ahead of that and starting the real estate investing, really focused on it. Now this was back in, I'm sorry, not 3 or 4 months, a couple of years. Now this is back in 2006. Okay. And we all know what the market was doing then, right? And so I consider that my fault start, but she came along and she really put the design element of what we're trying to do and really the logical, like level-headedness, and she takes a lot of the emotion out of it. So I'm very fortunate about that, but to have her on board. And we never had to really sit down. I mean, we sit down and talk about deals. Hey, what's the next strategy? What do you think about this opportunity? That in itself is a challenge when you live in an RV and you've got 3 kids, all, really small. So I just saw your face like, oh, yeah. So that can be challenging. And we're not as aggressive on that front as sometimes we would like, but other things are important for us. Right. We want to be able to be there for our kids and we want to spend more time with them. And man, when you live in an RV, you get to spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah, that's for sure. A constant reminder that you're doing this for their legacy.
Right. Exactly. And not to strangle them.
So tell me about that transition point, because I think there are a lot of people out there that are listening and then they're working W-2, 9 to 5, or some of them are independent contractors and blah, blah, blah. And they're just working. They're just doing the grind every day.
Yep.
How do you transition? I think this is what your book is all about, is how do you transition over now from, and what is that transition point and how was that transition point for you? How did you work that transition and broke away from the rat race?
Yeah. So my investing style was just kind of follows my personality, very conservative. Most people in our mastermind, when they come in and they join, it takes them about 3 years to achieve that financial freedom number. And then they can hit the eject button, right? For me, it was over 6 years. The reason I got started in this is the company that I was a principal at was acquired. That acquisition was going extremely horrible. Right now, I'm a customer representative. I got to hear all the bad stuff from, the external customers, and got to hear all the bad stuff from the internal customers. Promises were made, promises weren't kept. And this was a repeating cycle for the next couple of years. So, I had our very first child was on the way, and we had recently gotten married. And I'm just like, man, there's a trifecta of here of like, dude, you got to wake up. Something's not right. Because I had aspirations to climb the corporate ladder, I didn't really want to be the president. I don't really necessarily like being in the skylight. And I know how hypocritical that sounds if you look at the W-2 capitalist, but I didn't really like being in this spotlight. I think I said skylight, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's
probably because you're introvert.
Yeah, I think so. And
you didn't want to be in front of people saying.
I didn't. I wanted to be the guy in the background, the number two who made all the stuff happen. Right.
Yeah.
And going through that acquisition and just kind of the trifecta, we got married. The acquisition happened. We had a baby on the way. Then they started threatening with layoffs. I'm like, I got to do something different. We're still living paycheck to paycheck. I'm making 6 figures. We're living paycheck to paycheck. Something's not right. And then that's how we found real estate investing. And then, so, we started out extremely small. First house we bought was, it was a foreclosure. We bought it for $22,000. We put $9,000 into it. It rented right away for $600 a month. And we held that property for about 3 years. And, once we got that first property and we probably looked at 15 different properties. And, this thing was listed for 25, and we kept going back and forth on the number with the with the bank that had it. And they're like, no, we're not giving it to you for like in the teens. And so I was like, I don't know if it makes a deal. I don't know if it makes the deal. And, now I can laugh at that, but that's a lot of the premise of the book is you don't know what you don't know until you go through your first offer. Right. And then you don't know what you don't know until you go through your first deal and you get it and you start working with tenants and property management companies. And the book is really just to encourage people to take that next step, as scary as it may feel, because in a couple of years, you're going to laugh at yourself about how ridiculous you were nervous over that. But so we kept doing that. We kept buying properties and just rinsing and repeat. And when the time came to sell them off, we would sell them off and then reinvest that money back in. And so we started building up this portfolio over the next 6 years. And then COVID happened, right? And then COVID, everybody just, I don't know, everybody hit the panic button, and I got laid off. Yeah. And so my escape from the rat race came with a bit of a boot up my butt to get out the door. And
sometimes you need that.
Best thing that ever happened to me. And I, for the folks who are in my mastermind, who I try to encourage, look, man, you're there on your financial freedom number. Why don't you just go ahead and hit the eject button? I can't put pressure on them and say, look, go quit, because I didn't do that. I was like, if I didn't have that boot up my backside, I probably would still be working. And I, when that happened, I was not expecting it. I was leading a sales team at that point in time. And we were a huge Microsoft partner, and we were selling remote software, and the world's about to make this shift to being remote. And the sales team that I was running, we exceeded our quota 4 out of the last 6 months. Right. And so I feel like I'm doing pretty good as compared to my counterparts, but the company chose to make a different direction. And, I mulled around the house. I mean, I pouted and everything. And at the moment I got the phone call, I think it was maybe 5 minutes afterwards, Cassie said, great, now we can go buy an RV and now we can go travel. And I'm like, wait a minute, just hold on a minute. Let's figure this thing out. And so it took me about a year to kind of warm up to that idea. And that's where we are now. And so my transition, from the W-2 world was a blessing. I mean, it was, and I enjoyed what I was doing. At this point in time, I had transitioned companies and found a place that I felt was called home. And because the place that was going through the acquisition, it got known what I was doing on the side and real estate investing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so these conversations bubbled up to, well, what's his side gig? Is real estate investing his side gig, or are we his side gig? Because we're paying his salary, you know what I mean? And so I had answers to a couple of those conversations, but the thing that I found, Eric, was that when I started offloading that pressure of income producing and supporting a family and whatnot to some other means than just a W-2, and this is why I think creating multiple streams of income is extremely important. I actually became a better employee.
Yeah.
And, I became a more confident employee. So when I'm sitting down in front of customers, or I'm sitting down in front of my bosses or my coworkers or my team, it just allowed me to think and talk with a different set of clarity than, man, I've got to say the right stuff or my salary goes away.
Yeah.
And how in the heck
then
am
I
I
lose
feed
my house
family?
and all that.
Yeah. And so, all those thoughts would go through, but I finally, the last time my boss at that time asked me, hey, what's the side gig? Are we the side gig? Or I was like, yeah, let's talk about it. And never before I would have that confidence to say, hey, let's talk about it. I said, let's talk about what my customers are doing right now. Have I lost any customers in the last year? Nope. From a revenue standpoint, who owns the highest amount of revenue producing customers? Well, that's me. Okay. So I produce the most revenue and I haven't lost any customers. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to continue this conversation? Because if so, I'm going to ask for a raise. You know what I mean? So, but I had the confidence to say that because I had, this supplemental income coming through real estate investing, and I never would have had that before.
Yeah.
Never would have.
It changes your relationship for sure with, because I, when I was financially free, I continued working as an independent contractor.
Yeah.
For a little bit, I think for like a year or just under a year. And it changed the relationship with your work and your client or your employer at the time. And because you kind of like, you're more confident and you say, for me, it was like, yeah, I'm just doing this because I chose to do this. Like I chose to come to work and do this project. I know it's difficult and it's a lot of work, but I chose to do this. Like I could go if I don't want to, I don't have to be here, but I chose to do this. So that's, to me, I think that's important. Change your relationship with work. And if you don't have that other stream of income that's coming, that passive stream of income, then you're kind of at the mercy of your employer. You're at the mercy of them to give you a raise. You're at the mercy of them to give you a promotion, to give you vacation time, to, all that kind of stuff. And that really didn't sit well with me for many years.
And here's what I didn't know. And back to, you don't know until you try and you don't take that next step. Is I kind of got tired of those issues. I got tired of the acquisitions. I started looking for other companies to go work for, updated my resume and started getting phone calls. And I made the decision from, filling out the application. Hey, what are some of your hobbies? Real estate investing. And I made it known from the day one when I applied to, they introduced me to my team that, hey, look, I invest in real estate on the side. And at that point in time, I got hired by a guy who got it. Right. And so, day one, I'm introduced not only to my team, but the entire sales floor. And I have to give this little 5-minute speech of my experience and who I am. And I wrap up and I said, okay. I said, Chris, anything you else want me to say? And he goes, yeah, stop being such a humble asshole. Hey guys, he does some really cool stuff on real estate investing on the side. He's been really successful with that. So if you're interested in learning more about this, maybe you take him to lunch. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, I am brand new here. And my boss just told everybody about my side hustle and how good I am at it. And I was like, I just want to compare that to where I came from. And there was constant pressure to not have a side gig. Right. And don't, I was like, man, what a breath of fresh air. So for anybody listening to this, if you feel like you're going to get pressured by it, you may or may not, it just depends. But I can tell you there are employers out there that are simply okay with it, right? And
Yeah,
they get it. It's
there
a
are a
different
few.
game.
There are a few, but yeah,
There are a
there are
few.
some out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them, yeah, they kind of, as long as it doesn't interfere with anything you're doing, you don't take
Yep.
phone calls during the day or something like that. Then
Yeah. Schedule
a
those
big
lunch
meeting.
breaks and accordingly, right?
Invite your contractor over for take the
Yeah, for a
boardroom.
demo. Don't do that.
Don't do that. No.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for me, the other thing too about the side gig that I find interesting is about the mindset as well.
Yeah.
So you have two choices. You can say that, hey, I'm working full time and then I have a side gig of investing in real estate. Or you can say, and that's kind of like what my mindset was, is that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person, and my side gig is my job. I'm doing the side gig, my full-time job or my independent consulting, as that's my side gig. And and that changed quite a bit of things too, because you get to, when you introduce yourself, say, oh, no, I'm a real estate investor, and say, oh yeah, and I also do.
I'm still getting used to that phrase, by the way.
Yeah. And so that's changed the conversation a little bit. Then they know you as a real estate investor. And then the other thing too that it changes, and that's a little bit tricky with your employer, is when you do LinkedIn, for example, your LinkedIn profile, and you say, hey, I'm a real estate investor, and have a side gig here of my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That was the trickiest part here, the LinkedIn piece of it. But I think in terms of the mindset, I think that's pretty important. And a lot of people, they're not comfortable having to deal with these two realities at the same time. And I mean, my recommendation is assume the role that you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're an investor, and then unfortunately you have to work for this company for a while to make enough
for a little
money.
bit longer.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. And one of the things that I didn't do this at the start, but I eventually said, okay, if I'm going to get serious about this hobby of mine of real estate investing, I've got to put some hours in, right? And being a new dad, newly married, by the time I got home at night from work, I'm completely fried. Like mentally, I'm remember the acquisition is going horrible. I'm getting screamed at all day from customers, and then customers are leaving, and then my boss is asking me, hey, why are the customers leaving? And I'm like, well, you guys acquired us and you took away a bunch of resources that are used to. I don't know. Anyway, so eventually that leveled out, flattened out, and we started doing really, really well as we ramped up our investing on the side. But what I started doing is I luckily stumbled upon Miracle Morning, the book by Hal Elrod. And, and that was one of the things when my boss finally came to me and said, hey, what's the side gig, us or real estate investing? I said, here's one thing you don't understand. He goes, what time do you think I get up in the morning? He goes, I don't know. You're here at 8, 7, 7:30. I said, I get up at 4 a.m. every morning. Now I go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'm okay with that. I'm a new dad. I'm exhausted. I know I want to get up, but at 4 a.m. I'm getting up, I'm doing my Miracle Morning routine, which takes about 30 minutes to an hour, right? Just me time. And then from that point up until I have to get ready to go to work, I'm focused on real estate investing, right? I'm doing market research. I'm trying to get my next batch of cases. Sometimes, having conversations like this at 5 a.m. in the morning, I've done that before. And I just told myself, you don't see the effort that's going in. All you see is what's on social media where somebody may tag me in a post that we just closed an apartment complex. You're like, when the hell do you have time to do that? I'm like, it's not as difficult as you think. Just, if you want to continue having this conversation, we can. But it was just that whole shift for me. And again, back to taking your focus off the stress off of being at work all day. That allowed me to spend a couple of hours in the morning time and really focus on something I was truly passionate about and excited about. You want to talk about putting your day in a different trajectory. than just waking up, dreading to go to work, come home and just being mentally exhausted. Start working your way to get up earlier, and then spend that time doing something you're extremely passionate about. Right.
Mhm.
And once you do that, you feel like you've it's almost like you have 2 days in one.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit easier to shift those gears between am I an entrepreneur or am I a W-2 employee, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah. Oh, that's true. But yeah, people, the morning is fantastic. I mean, I think it's, I also get up early in the morning, not at 4, but I
I
do
don't do
get up.
that anymore. I love it. Let me clarify. I felt like that was going to be a business trip, and it
Yeah.
was going to take me a couple of years of doing that. And
Yeah.
now, man, if I get up before the sun, something else is going on. I
But I
put
think
in
the
that
morning is
time.
very,
So
yeah, but I think the morning is very powerful because I think
yeah,
everybody's sleeping. It's super quiet.
yeah,
You just, yeah, having a morning routine, having a similar routine in the evening is a lot more difficult. There's so many
it
things
is.
that happened, and
Especially if you
it's
have
out of your
kids.
control. Yeah, especially if you have kids. Yeah. So yeah, so I think that this is great. If you're really interested in doing that side gig, and you need some, focusing on the morning, carving some as much time out in the morning as possible for you to
Yeah.
work on your side gig is very important.
And let me touch this topic just for a minute. Is if you hear me say 4 a.m. and you're like, man, that guy's crazy, no way I'm gonna get up at 4. I'll do 5 though. But you're used to getting up at 7. Don't expect to start setting your alarm clock tomorrow morning and you're going to get up consistently for weeks and months, maybe years on time at 5 o'clock. You need to treat it like it's an exercise, right? So you don't go into the gym, put 500 pounds on the squat rack and knock out a couple of reps if you haven't been in the gym in months or years,
Yeah.
right? So if you've or never been in a gym, right? So one of the exercises that I encourage people to do is just set your alarm clock back 15 or 30 minutes earlier, right? Get used to that for a couple of weeks and then do it again and then keep doing it to the point where then, until you hit your time window. On the flip side of that, as long as you're like, if you have an iPhone, I know this app exists because I have it on mine, is you have a bedtime reminder. So
Mhm.
you go to
Yeah.
bed earlier, right?
Yeah.
And you're reminded, hey, so that way you're not sitting there zoned out with TV, watching reruns of The Office and getting, oh crap, it's 1 a.m. I got to get up in 4 hours. Man, this is
Exactly.
going to suck.
I
Yeah,
just
you
wasted
really have
4 hours.
exactly some good laughs in there, but you wasted some time.
Yeah. The other thing too, yeah, I know you mentioned that kind of like gradually go down. It depends on your personality. For me, like I'm more like the Band-Aid kind of
Okay.
person.
Yeah.
I would set it right to where it's supposed to be. Set it at 5 in the morning, and then yes, I'll be tired for a few days, but eventually I'm gonna go to bed earlier because I'm gonna
Yeah.
be tired, and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna wake up at 5. And after a week, I don't need the alarm anymore.
Yeah.
I'll wake up at 5 after that. But yeah,
Yeah.
two different approaches, depending on your personality, how you work things, how you.
Yeah. And there are some people who are just not morning people and it's never going to work for you. Right.
Mm,
And as
yeah.
long as you're good with that, I encourage everybody to give it a try because I made the excuse for a long time. Hey, I'm not a morning person. My mind doesn't really kick in until about 10 a.m. I'm not going to waste getting up, waste some really good sleep time
Yeah.
on just getting up and being cloudy and not having a clear thought. But it really is, you get in that routine, it really changed the way that I looked at things. Right.
Mhm.
And it's been a huge, I mean, I have to give part of our success credit to that, the
Mm,
whole miracle morning
yeah.
aspect of it, because
Yeah.
it is life changing. So if you're sitting there, you're listening to this like, I'm not a morning person, it's never going to work for me. Just try it. What do you
Mm,
got to lose? You're gonna, once you go through this stage in your life and you've hit financial freedom, you can drift back. I certainly did.
mm.
you know
Get up all the way late till 8 in
yeah,
the
you get up
morning.
at noon if you want to. Yeah, it's amazing what you how your schedule frees up once you hit that financial freedom number.
Yeah, I don't think I can get up after 8, so I have to be.
I can't either, not with the kids anyway.
So let's not quite switch gear a little bit, but I mean, there's a lot of information out there about real estate investing. There's lots of courses, there's lots of books and all of that. And but sometimes I think what I've found is that there's still a lot of people that are on the sideline. And I think this is why your book is great, is that just like get in there, make an offer, and get started. You're going to learn by doing. You're going to learn so much more by
Yeah.
doing. So that this is great, but people need a little bit more help than that. You know, I do like a mentorship and stuff like that for people who needs the additional help. And you have a mastermind group that's pretty successful that people can join. And tell us more about that and what you do during these masterminds, and you know, because maybe or explain what a mastermind is. Maybe some people don't even know what a mastermind is. And
Yeah. So first of all, let me say that if you're just now starting, you need several people on your team. You need at least one mentor, and your mentor is somebody who's going to be there for your duration of real estate investing. And you may depend on them highly, much more in the very beginning than you do as your journey and your career progresses. You also need a coach. And when I think of coaches, I think of back in the day when I was playing sports. There are seasons, right? There's football season, baseball season, basketball, whatnot. So think of a coach as somebody that you're only going to temporarily use out of the year, right? So maybe 4 to 6 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, but typically somewhere around there. So you have a coach, you have a mentor, and then I think one of the most important pieces of your circle is an accountability group, right? Or just people who are aspiring to do what you want to do, or maybe a little bit further down the road than you are, right? And that's what, when I think of a mastermind, that's where that's my definition of that. Now, Napoleon Hill is known as the godfather of masterminding, and he's got a little bit more college collegiate definition of what a mastermind is. But basically, it's a group of people who get together and talk about a common subject, right? And I love the way Mr. Hill puts this, is with a positive mindset, right? So I think it's hugely important. And just, the old saying goes, you're the you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around the most. And if you want to be a real estate investor, why not hang around a bunch of real estate investors? And for some of you, and even for me, that changed what I did. Now, again, introverted, not very much a homebody. I was not going out and doing a lot of stuff, but it changed who I spent time with. It's changed who I talked with, at work or whatnot, because I knew if I go over and talk to them, we're going to ramble on about something. I'm wasting time. I want to talk about real estate investing. Let me go get my work done so I can go take a quote unquote break, and go make some phone calls. And, but yeah, so, in the mastermind, I'd say there is no specific rule set or handbook say, hey, this is how a mastermind is formed. I've formed the W2 Capitalist Mastermind based off of, and it's an ever evolving process, because every year I join a new mastermind, not only for the growth and to level up my skill set, but also to see what these folks are doing, right? And say, okay, well, I like this piece of what they're doing. Let's figure out how to adopt it in ours. But it's, there are several different, when I guess I should say, the word mastermind is used loosely. A lot of folks will do in person, maybe once or twice a year masterminds. They may have some virtual component, right? And the way that we run ours, and this fits right into my personality, and part of the reason why I started doing it this way, is all virtual. Right now, last year we had our first in-person event, and that's because I got pressure from the mastermind members to hold one. And we had 30 something people come to Sandestin for a couple of days, and it was amazing. Most of these people have been in the mastermind for years and never physically met, because they're all over the country. And but yeah, we have a format. Every call, now sometimes we go off script, but every call we do 3 things. We go around the virtual room. Hey, what's your big win for the week? Because we want to know, again, that sometimes this business sucks. Sometimes it stinks being in real estate investing. So we want to hear what other people have for successes. Then we have a Q&A session. And then the last thing is, what's the one thing that we can hold you accountable to get done between now and the next call, right? And we've got over 20 virtual calls that happen every month. Some are niche specific. So you can kind of bounce around and get familiar with what other people are doing. But it's the main point of joining a mastermind. And I don't suggest you join just one. I think you need to do multiple, and then maybe try some out, as the years go on. But basically find your tribe who's going to push you to do more than you think you're capable of. And once you find those people, then hey, this is the place for me, right? This is where I want to call home.
And you mentioned earlier that some of the people that are in your mastermind and stuff like that, where they have that the financial freedom number, which is basically the amount of passive income they need to generate in order to be financially free.
Right.
And you mentioned that some of them, they were able to achieve their financial freedom number within 3 years. That's pretty, and you were able to do it in 6 years.
Yes, sir. So we started keeping track of this. So our mastermind started in 2018, and I just started keeping track of this last year. But last year we had about 10% of our members put in their notice and say, hey guys, I'm no longer working at W2.
Wow,
I'm focused on real estate investing.
That's great.
This year so far, we're on track for that too. So we've had 5% actually, pull the ejection handle, but I know there's a few more that are on track to do it this year. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty exciting to see them, and that's not anything that like we guarantee or
of course,
hey, you come in. Here's one thing I can tell you, and I don't want to say this for all masterminds, because there are some that are free. There are some that are just super expensive, the guru type deal. They all don't produce the same results. But what I can tell you is that, because we polled our members at the end of 2020, I think is when it was, hey, from the time you've started in the mastermind until now, how have you grown as far as transactions and number of doors? If you're fixing and flipping, how many houses have you flipped? Basically, the numbers came down to over 80% of the members have more than doubled their portfolio or transactions, if they were wholesaling and flipping, than the year previous to that. And I was like, man, that's pretty strong. That's pretty strong numbers. And and most of those folks were attending 2 or 3 calls a month.
Wow.
So the power of just surrounding yourself with like-minded people and people who are going to call you out on your BS. And I think that's where a lot of that power comes in, because it's a very small niche community. These folks get to know one another very, very well, and they're not afraid to call one another out. Like, hey, Eric, you've been talking about getting this done for a while, or making a move on this property for a while. What are you doing? What's the holdup? Like it's really good to see that go on.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. You have to have other people that are in the same space and all of that, and go ahead, do it, put the offer, and having other people telling you, it's gonna be okay. I remember the first investment property, I was worried that I wouldn't get my earnest money deposit back. It was $500. It was like, now it's just like, wow. I was so concerned about that. I want to make sure I get that $500 back. Who cares? They get it. It's just like,
I had explained this to a new realtor we're working with, and we made an aggressive offer, and we were wanting to put, I think it was like 1% down. I think that the EMD was like $3,000. And she goes, but if we make the offer like this and you don't go through with the closing, you're not going to get your EMD back. I was like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm trying to be competitive. I'm that confident that we're going to get it if they accept these terms. And she goes, okay. Anyway, we got outbid, but it happens.
Yeah. The other thing I had is, do you know from your mastermind, like, what is the average financial freedom number? Are you keeping track of that?
I don't. It's a very good That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I want to, if I'm assuming, and we don't get into a lot of like personal financial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it varies because it's, people are all over the country.
Yeah.
The cost of living in South Florida is a lot different than it is in like, the panhandle of Florida or East Tennessee or,
Yeah.
upstate New York. So it's a little bit all over. So I don't know that. If I had to guess, it's probably somewhere between 100 and 200,000 a
Okay.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm looking at when you talked about, achieving that financial freedom number, somebody did it in 3 years, which is, I think, a little bit unusual to do it this quickly. 6 years is also pretty quick, but it's more feasible, definitely. But my point here is that it's not that far off. If you're
It's
working a
not.
W-2 job, and if you think it's going to take you 25 to 30 years to get there, it's not that far off. You're very close. So if you want to make the change, you have to take action. You have to do something, but it's not that far off. It's like, it's definitely, I just recorded a video about kind of like how do you achieving financial freedom within 10 years with starting at zero. And
Yeah.
it's totally feasible, even if you don't have anything to get going on. So
Yeah. And for a brand new beginner, don't focus on that. Don't focus on trying to achieve. Let's focus on deal number one, because there's several things that are going to happen when you close deal number one. Number one thing is your confidence is going to be boosted. It's like, oh, this is not as scary. Like that big, hairy, scary animal underneath the bed doesn't exist. Like this is not that hard. I can see why so many people are doing it. And then number two, you have a more sense of a reality of what it may take to get to that number, right? So
yeah.
for all beginners, focus on getting deal number one done. Don't focus on anything else. Don't clutter your mind with, oh, well, what if this happens? Then I can achieve financial freedom. Man, 10 years? I can't wait 10 years. I got to find a different avenue. And then I'm like, that this thought just hit me. I was like, what? If you don't start investing in real estate and you do want to achieve financial independence, what's your alternative?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what's,
But it's,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's
you can play
inevitable.
with
I mean, you're gonna
crypto
have
and
to retire
maybe,
one day. You're gonna have to, yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So you can't
What's the
wait on your
alternative?
401k. Yeah, the other thing too is that
Yeah,
401k, it's misaligned with your goal. I want to retire
it
early
is.
at 55. Well, why are you saving in your 401k? Because in 401k, you're going to be penalized to death
Yeah,
in order
you are.
to retire at 55. Because it assumes that you're going to retire at 62 and a half, or,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
all that
If
kind
you
of
want to get
stuff.
on your HR's bad side, if you got if and they're holding a a retirement 401k seminar with whoever's sponsoring the plan that your company is providing, you can sit in the back row and you can start asking very pinpointed questions about how does this outplay the real estate market, or
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
see them squirm and squirm the whole time. I knew that moment when HR asked me to be quiet that I was in trouble. But anyway, yeah.
Very good. Well, Jay, so this is kind of wrapping up here. Anything else you want to talk to or say to our audience? Places for people to contact you on social media, join your W-2 Capitalist Mastermind.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm at W2 Capitalist on all the social media platform, not all the social media platforms, but several of them. So just look me up there. Of course, our landing page for all things is w2capitalist.com. But the last word of advice I'll give for anybody is the biggest thing that's changed. And we're talking about holding in the mastermind, holding other members accountable. They don't let me slack either.
Oh,
Right. So
yeah.
most of the calls I'm on there, I'm looked at just like any other member. And because I don't lead all the calls, and I get held accountable when my feet get pushed to the fire, and I wouldn't say picked on, but I get pushed pretty hard. And that group, I can say, is the biggest thing that has helped me grow. So my encouraging thing is if you're not involved in a mastermind, start exploring them, start finding out what's out there, and join one or two and see how it's going to change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jay. It was a pleasure having you. And so make sure that you follow Jay around all social media and check out W Capitalist. Jay,
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.